Hey guys, it's Jennifer Party from Understanding Energy, and I just wanted to share a few preliminary ideas about gender. So, what's bringing this up for me today is that there was a discussion going on Facebook on my wall in response to a video that I reposted. And this video was about toxic masculinity and the destructive effect that it has on men or on boys. And what the video talked about was the danger of men or boys being brought up in a culture that tells them it's not okay to feel your feelings and to express yourself and to be gentle and soft. That's the essential message that I got. And there was some kickback from a friend of mine and a little bit from another person that he took offense to the term toxic masculinity. And he's of the belief or opinion or persuasion that the issue is not with masculinity, but it is with a feminizing culture, a culture that doesn't respect the unique biology and differences and challenges of boys or men. So I just wanted to respond to this a little bit. So from my point of view or position, masculinity in and of itself is not toxic. And there is nothing inherently toxic about it, unless it is not connected to or is disrespectful of the feminine. And this is sort of from a tantric Buddhist perspective as well, that I'm coming from. So, not just a feminist perspective. So what I mean by this, so from a tantric Buddhist perspective, the feminine would be related to qualities of space, wisdom, and compassion. And the masculine would have to do with utility, skillful means, and sort of like constructive or destructive, active kind of principle. So at its best, the masculine protects, defends, asserts, builds, provides. And the feminine holds space, nurtures, births, is able to be with chaos, and able to sharpen with wisdom and gently rebuke if necessary. So masculinity only becomes toxic when it is not connected to space, warmth, and intelligence, when it's not connected to the feminine. Because then the world becomes solid, and then it's me against you, us against them, different parts of myself against each other, and this is not inherently helpful. Now, part of my friend Bill's point of view relates to the difference biologically between men and women, or boys and girls, and I would agree that there is some innate biological differences or predispositions. And there's some interesting books around this. I think he mentioned some studies as well, which I haven't looked into yet. But I read a book years ago called Why Gender Matters, which dealt with this a lot. And part of my exploration right now, personally, I'm reading a book called Love Your Lady Landscape, which is discussing largely about a woman's hormonal cycle and the flow and intelligence of that. And So I do believe that there's a lot to be learned about gender from biology, and that there are innate predispositions or differences. I also believe that some people do not follow those innate predispositions or differences strictly, and they manifest in a different way. So I read a study years ago, I haven't had time to look this up again, but saying basically that, for example, women who are lawyers or men who are musicians will have more of a balance of male and female hormones in their system. So that there's more of an androgynous tendency amongst certain types of people, or maybe people who tend to be more androgynous in terms of their hormonal balance are drawn to certain professions. So this is interesting. So to me, there's masculine and feminine from a Buddhist or energetic perspective. We could also talk about Mars and Venus in charts, or the sun and the moon in terms of astrology, which I want to come back to another time. And then there's biological differences between male and female, and those have a lot to do with like hormonal predispositions. Then there's cultural influence and how we're raised. There's experiences that we have that say it's okay to be this and it's not okay to be this. And I think that's a lot of what the video that I originally posted dealt with, is that we grow up in a culture where men are told it's not okay to be soft. It's not okay to be open and vulnerable and process your emotions. So in that way, toxic masculinity, or when I say toxic masculinity, I mean the kind of masculinity that is hard and subjugating and solid, not open to space. That kind of masculinity is destructive to men because it does not allow them to feel. Now, my friend Bill would argue that not allowing men or boys to express as they are is destructive to them. But that's disrespectful to their biology and their natural way of being, and I think there is something to be said for that as well. And then lastly, I want to mention that, of course, from a certain perspective, we all have masculine and feminine within us. And even though I biologically identify as female, and even though I'm interested in these kinds of things, understanding biological differences, I also consider myself somewhat gender fluid. And what I mean by that is that I have different parts within me, some of which are more masculine and some of which are more feminine. And it's been important for me to integrate and understand my own masculine. And part of what that means is learning to learning to protect and defend myself. Learning that I can build a life for myself. Learning that I can provide for myself, and also that my own, I'm not sure if this is strictly masculine or feminine, I would have to reflect on this, but it has to do with certain emotions that I have that might seem more destructive, like anger. Like, I feel like a lot of anger is connected to me having disowned my own masculine when I was growing up, or having it be not okay to be that way. So I feel like there's another layer of gender identity and integration, and that we each have integration to do with the masculine and feminine within each of us, but I identify as gender fluid, and that's a particular strong thing for me. So I just wanted to share some of these things, and I hope to elaborate more in the future, but those are some preliminary thoughts that I have on masculine and feminine and how we might work with those energies. Wishing you a beautiful solstice.